everybody. How are you doing today? You know, this is such a fascinating sight for me because I have in front of me a whole set of innovators, idea generators, and you just now developed a whole prototype of a product, and you're back here again for the next talk. Oh my God, do you have so much of energy inside you? Give me a yeah! Give me a yeah, man! Everybody, yeah! Wow, I mean, this is what we really need, right? And today we're going to bind everything that you did throughout your day and end it with what I really love talking about and I'm so passionate about, and that is product excellence. And that takes me to starting with a quote from Aristotle. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. This is something that you and everybody else needs to build into everything that you do every day. Build excellence into your work. Now, today, you have done a whole workshop of design thinking. Design thinking is an approach where companies try to get into the minds of the consumers and understand the pain and the requirements that they have. And from that, they build different solutions that can address that pain or that problem they have to solve the particular problem. And in this approach, there are various tools and methodologies that we use in order to keep us on track in thinking towards our customers. For example, I'm not using the tracker, let me start using that. Visualization, right? When I have an idea and I tell my idea in words, you could be thinking something else, you could be thinking something else, someone else could be thinking something else, because everybody perceives words in their own ways based on their environment, their context, and their understanding of what I'm trying to say. And that leads to a mismatch in everybody's ideas of what I'm really talking about. Let me give you an example. Now, let's say I have a goal to create a new growth platform, right? You say, my goal is to create a new growth platform. What will that do? An IT specialist will think that, oh, this is about servers. I need to think about all the servers. I have to stack all the servers. I need to think about the code around it. I need to think about how efficient they can be. A marketing person will think, oh, this is all about creating an advertisement campaign. Just look at this. We're going in different directions. That was really not what I meant when I said that's my goal. And so these are the things that cause mismatch if you don't use something that's a drawing or a visual design that really clarifies what is it that you have in mind. Then mind mapping. And in fact, I'm actually pleased to say in schools, my kids are just in the 4th grade, and every unit, they have something interesting that is taught to them. They build in history, maths, everything together to teach them. And they have to create a mind map for every unit. And what that really means is that there is the central idea. And with that central idea, you think about all the contextual items around it, ideas around it, terminologies around it, and try to connect that entire thinking of different things that goes into your mind with that specific central idea. And it's a beautiful way to understand that, you know, that's why they're using it in schools, that the child really understood the central idea behind the unit that they're trying to teach the child. Rapid prototyping, you just did it. You just did it. I was going around and looking at various groups and seeing how they're discussing things, how they're talking about things, what are the things they're trying to gather to make those prototypes. But as you can see, prototypes for our consumers gives them a real-life visual experience of what you're really producing for them to understand whether that really impacts the problem that they had to start with, and it would create efficient ways in their organization or in their lives by using your particular product. Storytelling. This is another very famous way of creating a relation between your product and the customer, right? You tell an entire story, bind it around the visual effects, and get into the heart of the consumer and the pain point of the consumer and show him how your product can completely wipe out and change the direction and the life of the consumer, right? There's also journey mapping. And we use this word terminology a lot. Does anybody know what is a journey? What is a user journey in the very simplistic terms? Process, okay? The step-by-step method in which the consumer starts with your product, what is it that he does with your product and moves from one step to the other step to the other step till the destination, right? So that's journey. And another concept which is interesting, and that is something that you just did, was concept development. Rapid concept development. And that's exactly what you did. What you did at stage 1 was you were given a certain problem statement. Of course, for companies, they would have certain insights from research, and they would have some other information, quantitative or qualitative information, and they would create ideas around that information, right? As a step 2, and I saw a lot of you doing that, we try to categorize those ideas into certain concepts. We take away the duplications and things like that, and we put them together into certain handful concepts that make sense as a story, right? And then the last thing that we do as a last step, we create a business design around those handful concepts, and we take those handful concepts and actually create prototypes against it. So this is normally used when you want to create an absolutely new product that may not exist, you don't have historical data around it, but it works very well when you're trying to take something completely new to your customers. So that's all about design thinking that you just did. But before I get into another example that I'd really like to talk about is, if you see all of this design, the various approaches that you're going to be using for design thinking, this really binds into the story of product excellence. The principles of product excellence are merely 4. Align, empathize, measure, and build. When you're using these various approaches for design thinking, you're doing exactly this. You're automatically following the principles of product excellence. You're aligning. You all think of a common goal, a common mission, a common quality bar, and you drive yourself towards it. And that's how you align towards it. Empathize. Empathize, you know very well now that since morning you're doing your design thinking exercises and various other activities. You try to understand your user. You try to understand the problem that he's facing. What is it that you're trying to solve for him? In fact, I would say that when you are thinking about your product, you need to ask yourself over and over again, did this product or feature come about because of a need I saw from my user when doing some research or something? Did I create this product or feature from a particular need that I saw from my user, right? That is the most important thing. The other most important thing that you should always ask, have I ever watched my users use my product? And if I did, what did I really learn from it, right? And the third most important thing that will bind us to the third principle of product excellence is, was I able to measure the success or the efficiency that my product made into the problem statement of the user or into the life of the user? And that's what brings us to measure. It's very important for us to measure the efficiency of our product, to measure whether our product is really doing what it was made to do for. And for that purpose, you should use various tools like user research. But apart from that, a very important thing for you developers here is to have performance tracking, right? Metrics. You need to create those signals inside your product that see the user going from one journey to another journey, or one step in your journey to another journey, and create insights and get insights from that and understand at which particular step your user stops, spends more time on, right? And what we can do to create more efficiency on that step. What is it that is causing that user to spend more time on a particular screen or on a particular page? So those metrics are basically created by you developers and by adding signals to your code and generating those metrics from your product. And of course, build, right? We are here to build excellent products. So it's very important that you're not only thinking about the launch that you're going to make, but you're ensuring that every process, every tool in your organization is building quality into the product. Whether you can say that during the requirement stage, you're validating that the product had those, the customer had those requirements. During the development stage, you're prototyping and showing it to your customer and getting feedback. Or during your quality assurance stage, you're ensuring that the quality of the product does not have too many defects, right? And similarly, there is something, I mean, there are many other processes that you put into place, like you ensure that your UXers test your product, so that initially when the UXers designed it, many a times developers like you create something completely different. Or it's not really exactly the same match, but it looks pretty the same. You know, I've been in conversations between a developer and a UXer, and the developer says, "It looks exactly what you made, yaar. What are you telling me about? Why are you saying there's a problem?" It doesn't look exactly what you're saying. I made it like this with these specifications. You've made a change in my specifications, and it doesn't look the same. It's very important to understand the reason why that designer is designing by sitting into the minds of the consumer, and how you know, you always feel, and sometimes you always get into this biased state where you feel, so what if a button is not 14 pixel and it's actually 16 pixel? How does it matter? It matters. It matters because you are trying to create a product which is going to be a high quality product. That particular difference in pixel could create a difference in your screen from one size of the screen to another size of the screen, to a mobile, to a tablet, and all the other factors that take into place. When a designer designs a page with a certain specification, he tests it across various platforms and ensures that it looks exactly the same. When you change that, you are breaking one or the other platform. It could be the tablet, it could be the mobile, or it could be a large screen or a small screen. And that's the reason you need to empathize and realize what the designer really wanted to do. So those are the simple 4 principles of product excellence. And you basically do it if you do design thinking and you work towards collaborating with your teams on a focused mission of quality, right? Now, I want to give you an example along with this about Slack. Anybody knows the product Slack? What is it about? Yes, so you can message, you can share files, you can do a lot of collaboration between teams. Now, Slack has an extremely great successful story in the market. And it was designed by a designing team called MetaLab, right? And the first principle, or the first goal that designing team, as well as the person who started the product, initiated the product, was that they wanted to ensure that it just looks, feels, and sounds different from a boring enterprise application. Right? Their target audience was enterprise. And you know, company applications have 150 or 1,000 features in it, and you have to ensure that you have to click, 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 and then something will happen, or something will not happen, right? But their first goal was that, hey, we need to create fun into working. So they designed their product thinking of that goal. Then the other thing that was very unique about them is their go-to-market strategy. They decided that we need to know how our product is doing with our customers. So initially, when they created the first set of criteria for their product, they literally begged their friends in various companies to use their product, to adopt their product, because they wanted the consumers to tell them how their product was doing. So they totally went after consumers, or went after these enterprise companies of their friends, their relatives, and things like that, and said, no, you have to use our products. Use our products with a few teams. The few teams would use it, they would get feedback, they would fix it, take out another release, and they would incrementally keep fixing with each feedback that they got. They gave the feedback a lot of importance. They were very focused in saying that when the customer is telling us a certain thing, we're going to really spend time in understanding that and making a change to our product. As users kept using their product and they became, and the teams in the company really liked it, there were larger teams in the company that started using it. When larger teams started using their product, they realized the product was not doing that well. For smaller teams, it would do really well. As the team size increased, it wouldn't do that well. And that was a fantastic feedback for them, right? They took that feedback, they started all over again. They again took out a number of changes to the product. And this time, progressively, they did changes and they moved to even larger teams. So while they made changes, they also made changes to their audience so that they get more feedback and then more feedback. And they would keep going round and round in those cycles. And therefore, they created a product that was totally dependent on the feedback they were getting from people who were using their product. Another very interesting strategy that they had was, you've heard of many products. You've heard of beta releases, right? What do you think of beta when you think of it? If I am I wouldn't do that, but let's say I take out a product and I say, hey, use my product, and it's in beta. What would be the first few things that come to your mind? Yeah, it's going to be unstable. I'm going to have trouble with it. I'm going to look at it, blah, blah, beta. The word beta is sometimes, oh my God, that's pressure, right? And so they didn't want to use that because they did not want to create a perception of instability in their product. So they decided to actually do an invite model. They said anybody can write to us saying that they want to try our product, and we will give them access to the product. And that was just amazing because you know the human behavior, right? When you don't get something, you really want it, right? If I hide a chocolate somewhere, everybody's going to try to find the chocolate first, right? So they did that, and it was amazing that the first day itself, they got 8,000 requests, and in 2 weeks, that increased to 15,000. So the amazing thing about Slack's story is how they differentiated between different other products in the market and completely used a new methodology that would go well with the audience of enterprise customers. Moving on, I want to show you a few examples. Yes. So let's look at some examples in the past that would tell you how successes and failures of various products really teach you that from day one, you need to think about product excellence. You need to think about those principles of product excellence that create a great product. So let's look at the story that is called The Fate of Edsel. This is a Ford which decided to create a new premier car for the middle-class Americans, right? And the executives of this product, they were so confident about the product that they put in $250 million to build the product. And instead of being a revolutionary success, this product actually led to a $350 million loss for the company. And what really happened? So they did the first right thing. They actually collected polls from the Americans. Said, what do you need from a car? Give me your requirements. And they collected a lot of polls. And so they gave it to their designers. And the designers felt very happy that they have all the information of their products from the customers directly who they are targeting. and let's do it. But remember the first principle of product excellence? You need to align. You need to focus to a certain goal and mission. What they ultimately developed was everything and everything in one place. Everything. They put in everything, right? In fact, it's so weird. This particular car came out with 18 variations in one particular car model, right? And so when they released the product, it was too expensive for the middle-class Americans. It used to take too much of gas, and it was a complete flop, and it was mocked in the press. So even though they started with the right step, because they didn't align well, they didn't think of what is it that they want to build on specifically, they landed in a failed product. CocaCola. Who loves CocaCola? Everybody's shy or what? It's not healthy anymore, huh? Right, the new Coca-Cola. Now, this is a time, as you know, that the biggest competition for Coca-Cola is Pepsi-Cola, right? And at that particular time, when Pepsi-Cola was coming in, it was considered to be the new kid on the block. And it was doing very well with the youth. In fact, Pepsi-Cola did an open blindfolded test with a lot of users, and they came out as winners of that test globally in the US. So now Coca-Cola was very concerned. They felt that the tastes of the users was changing to be more sweeter, because Pepsi is a little sweet, Coca-Cola is not. And so they thought, oh, people are changing, you know. Tastes are becoming, they prefer the sweetened taste. And they decided to create a new formula of Coca-Cola. But what was their go-to market strategy? They introduced the new Coca-Cola, and they stopped the classic Coca-Cola, right? They even did tests. They did the right things. They did 200,000 tests, taste tests, and everybody liked the new Coca-Cola. But they discontinued the classic Coca-Cola. The regular beverage drinkers went furious, completely furious. For them, Coca-Cola was part of the American history. And what the company was trying to do was taking away history from them. So they completely got extremely furious by this. And at the end of it, Coca-Cola had to apologize publicly. And they said, we have heard what you have said. And they brought the classic Coca-Cola back into place. So what did really Coca-Cola do? They felt the reason their product was not doing good or was being considered as the old brand versus the youth brand was there was a problem with the product and not the perception of the product. They really thought the problem was with the product rather than the perception of the product. So that's the place where Coca-Cola made a mistake. Now, you guys are used to tablets today. You see tablets everywhere. You go to restaurants also sometimes. You can use a tablet to give your orders and things like that. But actually, tablets came long, long time ago, and Apple introduced a product called Newton, which was a tablet kind of a product. But the product's battery life was really bad. It could not be connected to a desktop computer. Its handwriting software was not smooth. It had a lot of errors. And even though they kept on improving and fixing defects in the product really didn't go well. So this was a scenario where you would say, at that particular point of time, the market was really not ready for such an innovative product. And so this product really didn't go very well, and Steve Jobs canceled the project. This is the latest, anybody's heard of Juicero? Yeah, this is the latest example where there was a $700 expensive juicing machine. The machine was extremely beautiful in design. It was extremely beautiful in design. It was extremely high-tech. It had Wi-Fi connection. It would take a $5 to $8 packet of fruit and juice packet, and it would squeeze that and take out juice out of it. So the technology was that it would recognize whether the packet has unfresh product inside it. And and it went well. People were buying it. It was a very sleek product. It's beautiful, actually. But Bloomberg took out an advertisement and took out a video where they showed that they could have better juice by just compressing those packets with their bare hands. And that's it. That was the end of it. Even those investors who had invested into the company, they were shocked, and they didn't realize that it was not the machine that was taking out the juice. You could take it out with your bare hands. So, this is an example of a very, very simple use case turned into an extremely complex product, high-tech complex product. And it didn't go well. I mean, one day or the other, the market would know that they were being fooled by such an expensive juicing machine. This is an example of Google itself. Google Class Explorer program, which was introduced in the market in 2012. And some people say that it was just not cool enough, while others say that it was managed by, that it completely went out of control by an overzealous marketing campaign, right? It would get overheated. Its voice technology was not smooth enough. Its user interface of tapping and sliding was not good. The applications that could work on it were very limited and it could not really scale that much. And so the product was just not ready to be there in the market and did not do well. In fact, many people could not even relate to the product at that point of time as to what it was trying to do, how would it really grow, and how it would really be used in your day-to-day lives. And this is now going to be a positive example for you, right? Chrome browser. Everybody uses Chrome? Yes, we all use Chrome, right? And here's a real good example of how they followed the principles of product excellence. They had 4 foundational pillars for their product. Each member of their team, each member of the engineering team, it's really beautiful to see such teams collaborating together. They knew that what they're going to produce out of this product is simplicity. It's going to be fast. It's going to be simple. It's going to be safe. And it's going to be stable. That's it. This is what is the product going to do. That's it. And everybody used that as a mantra. And every time the QA team or the engineering team or anybody looked at the product, anybody evaluated the product, that's exactly what they were looking for. And it was a success. It is a success, right? So we should not be making assumptions that are not tested with our customers, right? We should understand the pain points or the problem statement, really, and not create our own problem statement in our head and create a product that will solve that problem statement, right? And we should spend time with our users. We need to see what they do day to day in their lives, right? And that's the only way you can really solve a problem. Don't create a problem, solve a problem. Right? There's another concept that I want to share with you. Okay, you know today, it's a global market. You're not really making products for only India or only Asia. You're making products for the entire market, the entire globe, right? And therefore, you need to be very aware of being inclusive of everybody that exists on your globe. It could be a person of different age. It could be a person from a different country, from a different culture. It could be a difference between male and female, right? So when you are building, always think you are building for all. Include everybody. And what are some of the paradigms that you would have to think about? You would have to think about gender. You would have to think about a developed country versus a developing country. You would have to think about the socioeconomic activities in those countries. You would have to think about age. You would have to think about culture. And you would have to think about disability, right? So now let's look at some examples. Let's look at some examples where products have been made to address or to be inclusive of all of this. And I'm very proud of saying that when we all work in Google, The reason we all thrive in our Google Workplace and we love our Google Workplace is because we know we give opportunity and respect to everybody. Some products that have been good at including cultures of different countries are like Cheetos, which is a snack that has a hot flavor, a cheese flavor, a simple salt flavor, and various things like that. YouTube for Kids is specifically for that particular age group. Emojis, if you see emojis, they have both the genders, right? And in maps, there could be specific places where they could specify areas or hotels or restaurants that are friendly towards disabled people. I want you to all look at this, and you can see how human beings can really make algorithms biased. Machine learning could actually get biased by the people who are building those people, the developers who are building those softwares.
Let's play a game. Close your eyes and picture a shoe. Okay, did anyone picture this? This? How about this? We may not even know why, but each of us is biased toward one shoe over the others. Now imagine that you're trying to teach a computer to recognize a shoe. You may end up exposing it to your own bias. That's how bias happens in machine learning. But first, what is machine learning? Well, it's used in a lot of technology we use today. Machine learning helps us get from place to place, gives us suggestions, translates stuff, even understands what you say to it. How does it work? With traditional programming, people hand code the solution to a problem, step by step. With machine learning, computers learn the solution by finding patterns in data. So it's easy to think there's no human bias in that. But just because something is based on data doesn't automatically make it neutral. Even with good intentions, it's impossible to separate ourselves from our own human biases. So our human biases become part of the technology we create in many different ways. There's interaction bias, like this recent game where people were asked to draw shoes for the computer. Most people drew ones like this. So as more people interacted with the game, the computer didn't even recognize these. Latent bias. For example, if you were training a computer on what a physicist looks like, and you're using pictures of past physicists, your algorithm will end up with a latent bias, skewing towards men. And selection bias. Say you're training a model to recognize faces. Whether you grab images from the internet or your own photo library, are you making sure to select photos that represent everyone? Since some of our most advanced products use machine learning, we've been working to prevent that technology from perpetuating negative human bias. From tackling offensive or clearly misleading information from appearing at the top of your search results page, to adding a feedback tool on the search bar so people can flag hateful or inappropriate autocomplete suggestions. It's a complex issue and there's no magic bullet, but it starts with all of us being aware of it so we can all be part of the conversation. Because technology should work for everyone.
But you can see how human bias can actually impact the machine learning algorithm that you're creating, and therefore the patterns that the machine will develop will themselves be biased. And so what are the two things that I want you to take away from this? Understand the needs of your customer and iterate and develop your product to make it a delightful product. So go ahead and create excellent products in your life. And thank you so much for attending this talk.